Today is day 3 of the Doodlewash 10th Anniversary World Watercolor Month, and we have a great tutorial in store for you today. We'll be looking at the colour turquoise and exploring how it can be used to create a lovely seascape, plus tips on colour mixing and lots more. As well, remember the World Watercolor Month is in existence thanks to the efforts of Charlie O'Shields, who founded the International Child Art Foundation in order to raise funds for the nurturing and encouragement of art in children around the world. To contribute to this great project, you can purchase mugs and pouches decorated with the artist's lovely paintings, including a set designed by myself. Just go to the link below to find out more. And remember, all proceeds will go to the foundation to help support their work. Each and every day of this month, that's 31 videos, barring accidents, I will be creating for all our Patreons and YouTube members a special video based on the colour prompts and guidelines we have created for the official Doodlewash prompt sheet. You can find our 3-page official prompt sheet on our website by visiting the homepage or scan the QR code which you can see on the screen now. And now, let's get painting. For day 3 of our Doodlewash World Watercolor Month, we're responding to the prompt Ripples with the lovely colour turquoise, and I will be creating a seascape for my Gift from the Sea sketchbook, which you can see here, which I've based on extracts from the beautiful book by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. And not quite sure what I'm going to do exactly today, but we're going to be basing it on ripples. This is the most recent painting I did, and yeah, so here's a blank page waiting for today's contribution. Now, looking at the colour turquoise, we're going to find a very highly transparent, where's my water? A highly transparent blue-green. This one here is a Michael Harding colour. This is aqua green, or it could be cobalt turquoise. This is cobalt turquoise in a pan. And it's pretty much exactly the same colour, maybe slightly more opaque. But in order to paint from it, I'll just lift some colour from the pan and pop it in there. So this is cobalt turquoise, which is the one that's recommended on the prompt sheet. This is aqua green, which is just a very similar colour. Another colour which is similar too is this Mayan blue, which is from Daniel Smith. This is a granulating turquoise. And you'll find lots of turquoises in all your sets. If you've got a Chinese set, you'll find something there like this. I'm going to just paint these out for you in a second to show you what they look like. I won't do it there because that's going to be for something else. So I'll get another piece of paper. No, I won't. I'll tell you what. I've got my book here. That's what I'm going to do it in. Yes, so we're doing colours in here basically. So we have day 3. It's going to be here, and I'm just going to do those 3 colours just because, you know, turquoise isn't a colour that I use very often either. I know you're all thinking, I don't know if I've got turquoise. What do you do with turquoise? One of the things you can do with turquoise is if you use it to do the sea, you can do something called glazing. I don't know if you're familiar with that technique, but it's something you do when you're painting in layers, and you paint a transparent colour over the top of something else underneath. We're going to try that today. So we have Mayan blue. That's from Daniel Smith. We have cobalt turquoise. That's from Winsor & Newton. And we have aqua blue, which is from Michael Harding. And as I say, there are lots of others. So here we go. This is aqua blue. It's a lovely colour. Very transparent, I would say. This is the one I'll probably use for the exercise that we're going to do next. I think it has a little bit of granulation in it, but it's not going to show much, if at all. And then we've got Cobalt Turquoise from Winsor & Newton. I think this is a bit more granular. You can see that when it hits the paper. You see the little granulations there. This one is much cleaner. So for layering, it's possible, which is what we're going to do, some veiling. The aqua blue is probably going to be better. And then we've got the Mayan blue from Daniel Smith, which is one of their special granulating colours, so that will granulate a lot. And all of these, obviously, they're all usable for what we're going to do, and also many others. There are Kuretake turquoises, which are absolutely beautiful. They'll work well as well. Paul Rubens, Mai Ling, all of them have got a turquoise in them, I think. And you can choose whatever you want. You can do this example in more than one way, with more than one colour, and experiment as much as you like with doing these layers. So there we are. Those are the three colours that I've got on my table this morning. Mayan blue, cobalt turquoise and aqua blue. And so the next thing that we're going to do is, I'm going to put that over there to dry. And I am going to practice doing some ripples. Now, this is something that I'm not really very experienced at, I have to say. So we're learning together. I always think it's nice when you can actually learn together, don't you? I've got a big brush here. This is a 1-inch flat, and it's good for putting a large amount of water on the page or for putting a large amount of paint on the page. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to be using the hairdryer a bit liberally this morning, so bear with me when we have to cut the video to take out the noise of that. You could paint a dry wash. We looked at the idea, the difference between wet and wet on dry on day one. You could do that. You could do a dry wash, or you could do a wet in wet. And I think I'm going to do wet in wet. I've put washi tape around this one. And I have to apologise about yesterday's video because I said that something happened. Okay, so while I'm doing this, I'm just going to talk. Something happened, and what happened was this. I painted the whole painting, including the tree, and I was going to show it to everybody, the complete thing from beginning to end, including the tree. But just literally as I was about to start the tree, somebody phoned me. It was a spam call. It was just a marketing call. And I had forgotten to check to see whether or not I'd put my phone onto airplane mode, because I record everything on my phone. And if I don't have it on airplane mode, when somebody calls, my stupid phone prioritizes a stupid phone call and shuts off the video, and I didn't realize it. Okay, so the whole of the painting of the tree was not recorded. So at the end, I experienced one of those moments when you realize that something's gone wrong and there's not really any way you can quite put it right. So we did our best, and I promise I will paint another tree and put that up soon so that you can see how I did it. It was very annoying, but I did try to stay calm, because it's not good these days to get upset. So there we are. That was the whole day went incredibly badly yesterday. So I picked up some ultramarine, and I'm going to brush that in and make a wash. And I'm not bothered about any variation in the wash. I want it actually probably to be a little bit uneven. I'm just stroking the paint in very gently with no pressure at all, just letting the brush float across the page. And this is supposed to be a sort of representation of just water, nothing else, no sky, nothing. And we're going to practice this thing with the ripples. So let's just put a bit more colour in. And if you turn your brush to the side, you can put in lines, and you could start off with your ripples like this. There's probably 1,000 ways of doing something of this type. And mine is this one is going to be, you could say, somewhat abstract. And you might, when you get to the end of it, say, oh, I don't think that looks like the sea at all. I'm going to doodle over it. And if you feel that way inclined, then I would say that was a good thing to do. I did that actually the other day. I tried this out because I'm just trying to find it. I do a lot of preparatory work. Can't find it. I'll show it to you when I do. I do a lot of preparatory work, and one of the ones I did, it turned out quite a lot like a background from the Kate Leach book. And I thought, oh, Tamsin said it actually. She said, oh, you could doodle on top of that. So I did. And where'd it gone? Hang on a sec. It's here somewhere. Oh, here it is. There we go. That was it. So this was basically the background like this. Background was like this, only it was in neutral tint. I did the background in neutral tint, which is grey, basically. It's this colour. So I did a background like that without masking off the edges. And then over the top of it, I painted cobalt turquoise or aqua blue. And then I did what I'm going to do next, which was kind of lifting out some of the colour to give me sort of waves. And yeah, so then I thought, oh, so I went over it with, Kate Leach style embellishments. So you can always do that. That's something you can do with a failed painting. Never consider a painting failed until you've gone into it so many times, you've worn out the surface or falls to pieces, or you just really need a firelighter, basically. Anyway, so I've tried to get some soft stripes in place here. And that's by using the brush like this. I laid it down first of all like that, and then I used it sideways on, so it's a narrow thing. You don't have to use a brush like that. If you haven't got one, don't worry, but actually a small house painting brush would probably do. Yes. Anyway, there's a link in the description below to a 1-inch, I think Princeton do one, which is quite good. And I'm going to just put on the hairdryer. Now this is nice and dry now. I've had my morning coffee break, and I'm just going to squeeze out a little bit more of this nice aqua green. I said aqua blue before, but I can't tell the difference between green and blue. We always have arguments in our family over colour. I always say when something's kind of turquoise, I always say that it's blue, and Tamsin always says that it's green. We don't really have arguments, but it's just a kind of difference of, opinion. But of course, turquoise is halfway between the two. So anyway, so this is dry, and what I'm going to do is put over the top of it a wash, very light wash of turquoise, cobalt turquoise or something similar. So for this purpose of this, I'm going to use this large 1-inch flat wash brush again, wash brush, you could call it. And I'm just going to, in this little palette well, I'm going to mix up a dilute wash there. And you need to test these things. You can't just go by the thickness of it necessarily. You need to know how dark it's going to be, because you can't really tell when it's sitting there in a puddle. So I suggest you mix up what you think might be right, and then you test it like that, and you can see straight away that that's probably dark enough. And what you don't want to obliterate the blue underneath. What you're going to do is try to just change the hue a little bit. So we are going to stroke the paint over the top of the blue. Just stroke it. And I mean stroke because if you go backwards and forwards too much, you will shift the blue that's underneath, and that will thereby spoil the effect. If you want to put it on a little angle so that it tends to run down, that's not a bad idea. And just try not to have to go back into it, because it won't improve it. You could go both ways if you want, or you can just go from left to right or right to left, depending on your handedness. So the idea is just to make a pretty combination of ultramarine and turquoise all the way over your paper. And I think you probably would agree that that is quite pretty. And so now what we have to do is we're going to dry it, or wait for it to dry. You can see the granulation there too, coming through from the ultramarine underneath, which is quite nice because it gives a certain amount of depth to the whole thing. And what we want to do next is to bring out the ripple effect. And so that means we're going to do something called lifting out using our brush. So I'm going to put the hairdryer on him and then come back and do the lifting out. Now, if you want to make it look greener, you can come in again with another layer of aqua or turquoise. And do remember to try to keep it so that you literally barely touch the paper. It takes a light hand. Not something I'm renowned for. I'm a bit slapdash, a bit heavy-handed, a bit brutal. Well, not really. But yeah, so you're trying not to lift the ultramarine underneath. If you were to use a real strong staining colour, like phthalo blue, for example, it would be less likely that you would disturb the underneath layer. Having done 2 washes over the top of the ultramarine, probably that's about as far as we can go with that. Maybe you might be able to get away with another one, but I'm going to leave it there. I think that's blue enough. If I had green enough, rather, if I had put a wash underneath that was, for example, phthalo green, and then came in with my turquoise, I would have something that was much greener. But I'm going to leave it like that because to me that looks a bit like a tropical sea. A bit. Okay, notice that I'm not painting on paper in a block at the moment. And the reason for that is simply that I've just realised that I have got a lot of paper in my plan chest. Different kinds of paper. I've got Fabriano, Arches, Bockingford, Winsor & Newton, Waterford, all sorts of different papers, which I'm not using because I have been using completely the Meaden blocks because they have kindly supplied me with them. And it's been great because painting on a block avoids all the need to have this kind of palaver going on around the edges. And, you know, if you've ever painted anything in watercolour, you will know, as well as I do, that you think when you start, you put a piece of paper flat on your board or on your table and you start to paint on it, and the first thing it does is it goes froing and curls up like that. And then you can't really paint on it, or it'll go like that. It'll make an effort to escape from your clutches. So when we paint, therefore, we have to fix the edges down firmly. And the block of paper, which looks like this, obviously, the Meaden ones, they make it so much more convenient because it's glued all the way around and it doesn't spring up when you paint on it. And this is actually a relatively new thing because until recently, the blocks, they were available. They've been available for years, but they were very much more expensive than any other paper, and it was much more much easier to get the type that just was glued down one side in a pad. And then they started to make this available, the Chinese, of course. So everyone else has had to jump to and do the same thing. So you'll now find lots of pads available. Whereas before, maybe they invented a machine that did it more easily. I don't know. But anyway, so that is definitely an option. But I'm just, you know how you need to ring the changes sometimes. And I feel as if I want to ring the changes a bit with my paper, so hence I've reverted a little bit, but I will still be painting on Meaden. Don't worry about that. That's not going to disappear. What you need now is a small flat This one is a connoisseur brush from Japan. I don't know where I got this from, but it's a 1/2 inch flat. I've probably got others. No, probably not. Well, yes, I have actually. Hang on. And I've got this one here, which is a size 16 flat from Drawwell. So I've got 3 handy. This is 1 inch. That looks like about 1/2 inch, and that looks like 1/2 inch as well. But anyway, so they're obviously different, and this one's much bigger. So what I'm going to try and do is lift out some ripples coming from the back, coming forward, and as I come forward, I will increase the size of my brush a little bit. So using it with the sharp edge up against the paper, I'm going to try to just take out a few ripples. And you'll need a piece of tissue paper in your hand to just dry off your brush a little bit. And just pretend that you are at the seaside and you're watching the waves. And in the distance, there's not much to see. They're all a bit distant and small little ripples, because that was the prompt, wasn't it? Ripples. You certainly don't have to paint ripples on the sea in your response to the prompt. You could have ripples on a cup of coffee, couldn't you? I'm going to go to a slightly larger one now. Yeah, so we'll just make these a little bit bigger, overlapping a bit. Silence reigned. I just start to make them a little bit more pronounced. Yeah, we should be getting a little bit bigger still now. This is quite a fun thing to do, actually. I can't remember the last time I did this. And as you go into the paper with your flat brush and you push away the pigment from where the brush is, you'll see you get a dark line at the top, which is quite nice, because that sort of looks like shadow. The main thing to remember is not to is to make sure that they are overlapping one another. So you don't come in a straight line down. That would look odd. And put an occasional small one in between the bigger ones, perhaps. And in a minute, I'm just about to transfer to my larger brush because I'm getting close to the beach. Okay, so we go to the big one here. And still, you can make them quite small. Even you could probably do the whole thing with one, to be honest. But I thought I would ring the changes. I'm all about ringing the changes at the moment. So we're thinking, as I often say, think pattern. Think not, does this really look like the sea, but think, do I like the pattern that I'm creating, right? And I'm just discovering that when you're doing your light line, if you bring it down a little bit, you'll get darker underneath as well. So you can emphasize that, perhaps especially as we come to the front. And you'll find your way as well. You don't need to do it exactly the way I am by any means. I'm just trying to give you an idea of something that you can do. So we'll just make that one a bit bigger in the foreground there. I'm not using much water. The brush is practically, certainly drip free. And so there we are. That is a pattern. I'm not sure if I need to put a small one in here. A pattern of ripples. So let's pick that up so you can see it a bit better. Okay, I will take the tape off now. And we're going to go and use that technique next in the Gift from the Sea. It's an etcher sketchbook, by the way, which we're going to be looking at next. I don't have many of them. Excuse me. I did buy one when they first brought them out, but I haven't had any more. But it's taken me a couple of years to fill up. Haven't finished it yet. Okay, so that's that. I don't like that one dark there. That's a bit too dark. So what we'll do is we will just spread that out a little bit. Okay. Right, so I'm going to put that in front of me and I'll use that as a model for the next thing. So I've prepared this book, and for those of you who haven't seen, here's a quick flick through. All of these paintings have got videos to accompany them. And on the left-hand side here, I have put a quotation from A Gift from the Sea. So that's just what I've done here, because I think it's a lovely book. Anyway, so we have got quite a few sort of nautical type things. Feathers, not really, but they kind of just felt, because you do find feathers on the beach, don't you? Especially those of gulls. That was the last painting I did. And as I say, they've all got videos to accompany them. You just need to look for them. We're going to create a playlist of Gift from the Sea videos. And for those of you who aren't aware, on the YouTube channel, on our channel, we do have a lot of playlists, and they're all divided into different topics and different times of year and all sorts of different subjects and so on and so forth. So if you're looking for something particular like florals or seascapes or something like that, you can search for a playlist, and we keep ours up to date. A lot of people don't, but we do try to put all of our new videos into a playlist so that you can find them there. And then that's quite convenient because you can just scroll through a selection of something, when you're looking for something particular in a particular area of, so it just makes it easier. So I just thought I would mention that. So now I'm going to paint a seascape, as we said before. I'm going to start with the sky, and I'm going to paint that in ultramarine, I think, because ultramarine was one of the colours that we did on day 2, sorry, that's yesterday. And then I'm going to bring that down into the sea, the same wash. I'll try to not go over the boats. And in order to be able to do that, I'm going to mask out the shape of the sails. I've got this, I just need to wake it up. Might take a while. It's a masking pen by Zig. I know it works when it starts to flow eventually. Here it comes. There we go. So yeah, it's a Zig masking writer, and you can actually use it for writing words as well if you want to, but it will rub off. So it's masking fluid. So we'll just kind of put the sail of these 3 boats. I've just scribbled in some boats. Doesn't matter about the details. Doesn't matter if they aren't completely white either, but it helps to keep them protected if you just use this masking pen. This is a new invention to me. Don't know how long it's been around in Japan, but I've always had to use a brush and a little bottle of masking fluid, which doesn't necessarily work all that well. So there we are. There's our boats. Just dry that off. And I don't think I'm going to use this great big brush for the background, but I might use this one. You can use anything you like, actually. Often I use a mop brush or a quill brush, like this one. This one here, this happens to be a Paul Rubens. They're also available from Meaden, and they've really, they've made it possible for everybody to have these quill brushes. Before, they used to be made by Isabey, which is in France, and they were very, very expensive. So this is great that we can have these now for a sensible price. And I'm going to take my palette and mix up a light wash of ultramarine blue here, and then I'm going to put that in over the whole painting. I'm not quite sure how well I'm going to be able to make the palm trees stand out, but we'll see. Okay, so I've put washi tape around the outside edges rather than, I can't find my ordinary masking tape. If I had it, I would use that, but I can't find it at the moment. So I'm not too bothered about this being a completely even wash, partly because that's not, generally speaking, the way that I paint. I would, in other paintings, perhaps put some pink or yellow in towards the horizon, but I'm not going to do that today because we're not focusing on a wonderful piece of art. I'll just lift this up a little bit so it flows down a tad. And we'll go right down to the bottom because we're doing what we did in our experiment earlier, where we're painting blue, ultramarine blue, underneath the sea where we're going to have our ripples. And like I said, it doesn't need to be completely even. And just let that dry. It has to dry before we can do the next thing. So here comes the hairdryer again. Okay, so that's dry, and we will now come in with our turquoise. And I did draw a line for the line of the sea, which is about here. So we'll just pick up some aqua green and just mix up a light wash of that. And then, as we did before, we'll take it all the way across, trying to keep it more or less level. Oops, I don't want as much as that. I've dipped into the wrong one. Never mind. And we'll go across again, very lightly, like before. And don't mess with it too much. It's a little bit of paper rubbing up. This is not, in my opinion, the absolute best paper in the world. Anyway, so we have a little bit of light in the middle, which is what we wanted, around the boats a little bit. And we've got the blue of the sky and a slightly irregular. That's okay. We don't care if the sea is a bit uneven, because the next thing we're going to do is come in with some green for some distant vegetation. So we'll need, if we're going to make the real green, we need to take some yellow. So here I've got something called Gamboge Hue. We mix that with some blue. I think I might mix it with some turquoise to make a prettier colour. And then I'm just going to bring up some a hill on either side of this lake or sea or whatever it is, distant sea, distant land. It's all right. chat amongst yourselves while I'm rambling. So that's in the distance there, but it's not going to stay like that. It's going to be darker at where it meets the sea. We will go for a little bit of burnt umber mixed with ultramarine to make a kind of grey, and we'll drop that in here. Just let that meander around. Don't want to make this too complicated. So now I have to let that dry. So now I'm going to try for some more green. And so let's put some more green over the top of here. And try to keep the bottom line a bit sharper. Don't necessarily want both of them exactly the same, but we'll try to get a bit more green into this hill. I'm going to put some palm trees in there in a minute, a bit more yellow. Okie dokie, and then I'm going to now put in another layer of turquoise. So let's do that with a big brush. And I'll leave a gap just there. Not touching the hills. And they just come down. As I said before, doing it nice and lightly, not so as not to lift what's underneath. Right, so that's that, and then we're going to dry it. Okie dokie, so now I'm going to pop in the palm trees. So we're going to mix up some dark blue with some umber, burnt umber, to give us a nice grey. So this is the ultramarine, and this is burnt umber. So we just get that in balance. Plenty of ultramarine. If we don't use it all now, we'll use it later. And then I'm just going to come in from, let's say, here with a nice dark leaning tree. Maybe another one behind it, coming up here at a similar angle, and over this side I'm going to come from the top down because I'm right-handed, and palm trees are often very unstraight, aren't they? I always remember that from when I lived in an area where we had them. We don't have them here, of course. So we'll do that. Use a little bit of this at the same time, just to drop a couple of bits of darker still into the horizon, which does always seem to look okay. And then we will go to a smaller brush still. And we go back to the turquoise, and I'm going to do my leaves Actually, I'll let those palm branches dry, because if I don't, I'll smudge them. Now, it would probably be sensible to have a few colours mixed up in advance for this, and I do want some yellow, so we'll put some yellow there from my other palette. And it doesn't matter if it goes a bit greenish, because we're going to do that anyway. So I'm going to mix a bit of yellow with some turquoise. Yeah, it's in here. There we are. So we've got a bright green, a yellow, some turquoise, and some turquoise with ultramarine. So we can do all sorts of different colours for our trees. I think I'll use a reasonably small brush, and isn't enough space there, so you can see a bit of it. Let me push this all over here a bit. Okay, so let's have a nice light leaf first. Try it out on these back ones. And we switch to more of a turquoise. Perhaps a bit more bluish underneath. And then perhaps we'll go to more yellow. And perhaps a little bit of dark in the middle, something like that. And this one, maybe I'll try doing the palm fronds in first. And then we will do dark in the middle. And a nice yellowish one over here. Okay, so that's that palm. And we'll try the same kind of thing over this side. Put in our fronds first. And we might start with fairly dark, because you know you've got your coconuts in the middle, haven't you? Put those in when it's really dry. Looking for turquoise, there we go. And then perhaps a yellowish at the top where it's catching a bit more of the light. And then dark in the middle, like that. And the same over here. Last one. La-di-da. The repetitive thing like this is actually quite calming, isn't it? And with any luck, it'll all go wrong, so you'll have to do it all over again, which is always fun. So we just pop in some really dark areas in the middle to indicate the presence of cocoa nuts. So there we are. And I will probably want to just put some dark area, some vegetation down the bottom here to anchor these things in place, or it could be their shadows, and so on and so forth. And then we're going to do the lifting out in the sea of the ripples. And I'm not going to do hundreds of them, but we'll just do a couple. And so we, as we did before, we're going to just give ourselves some light areas. We need a tissue to kind of help your process along. And we think of these ripples as being decorative items rather than really, you know, completely the way they would look in the sea. Just an impression, to give the impression of the water moving. So they come nearer to you, they get bigger in general. Put one here. So coming towards the end now, and tomorrow's colours and the prompt for tomorrow is going to be, let me see, colour is Payne's Grey, and the prompt word is fade. And so we're going to use Payne's Grey to just put some dark shadows in underneath these to indicate something gradually getting lighter and lighter. I'm not sure what my chosen subject is going to be yet, but try and think of something interesting. So just a little bit of dark underneath these ripples, which will hopefully work. And I haven't forgotten that I need to take out my boats. Put some shadows underneath the boats. I've got the turquoise on hand. Okay, so I will have to now, I'm just putting in some ripples just using the paintbrush and paint here too. Give plenty of life in the sea. Okay, so I'll dry that again and I'll rub out the boats and then I'll take off the masking fluid. I hope that's dry. Hope my finger's clean. Hope it rubs off. Sometimes it's easier if you use an eraser. It's good if it doesn't come completely white, because then you've got a little bit of shadow on your boats to make them look a bit more real. So if you can't get it all off, it doesn't really matter, but you're not supposed to use a hairdryer on masking fluid. This is definitely true. It can make it more difficult to get it off. And you have to be a little bit careful when you're rubbing it that you don't actually destroy the paper. But we're getting there. It's giving in. Sorry about the rattling, that's my palette. Getting excited. Okay, so that's okay. And we'll just use a white pen to straighten out things like the sail and the prow of the boat needs to be a bit, you might want to put a bit more information on there, might not, it doesn't matter if it's a bit, erratic. So that's that, and I'm going to take the masking tape off now. Being as it's washi tape, it very rarely pulls the paper up, which is definitely one of its best characteristics. There's pros and cons for everything, aren't there? So I can see now that my boats just need a little bit more shadow underneath them to make them sit into the water. So I'll just come back with a dash of dark colour there. There's the painting anyway. And very dark turquoise we want, I think. And this one, needs to, what does it need? Need to come up a little bit, like that. That'll do, I think. But whoops, I didn't quite mean to do that. And maybe we just put a little bit of shadow here and there on the sails. Yeah, I think that's better. It looks as if it's turning. Okay, so there we are. That's finished. If you wanted to, you can always put a few ripples on the water around the boats to indicate this reflection of the sails on the water. Just casually sort of put that in, and you could put a few highlights on the ripples themselves as well if you wanted to. You can even put just some streaks. It's up to you. If you're sitting in front of the sea, you'll be able to see what you can do that will look right or best. I'm not. I'm in the middle of the countryside. Not much in the way of palm trees and seaside round here. Have to go up to the coast for that. Okay, we just put a little light line along the edge of the land there. And I'm going to call that done. Okay, so there we are. One landscape, seascape, based on the book. And I will put my quote there. My quote is going to be, that I've chosen for this one, the quote is going to be, patience, patience, patience is what the sea teaches, patience and faith. One should lie empty, open, choiceless as a beach, waiting for a gift from the sea. So I will leave you now. I hope you enjoyed today's quite long but hopefully helpful lesson, and I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully you're enjoying it so far. So I'll let you go and say bye-bye for now, everybody. Bye-bye.